Welcome to The Eyes of Indigo with your infinitely curious hosts, Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Our show is broadcast live at 9:30 p.m. Wednesdays. Socio-spiritual topics are laced with humor as we discuss weird stuff in a rational way. Learn more about us in our first episode, The Prequel. Shows are recorded and available on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, and other aggregators. A keyword searchable index is at iriscarter.com/EOI directory. Share ideas and comments in the program chat or by email. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our show. Let us know you're here by typing your hello in the comments because we are thrilled to welcome you as we begin another adventure right now. There. Hey, I was clicking and it wasn't doing.
No worries. Hello.
Hello.
I've got a name. I don't see your name on the screen.
It's up here. Wait a minute. Let me take it off and I'll put it back. Is it back?
Interesting.
Now? Move your mouse. Make sure your mouse isn't hovered over it.
There. Yeah. That it popped up when I moved my mouse.
It does that to me too.
Good to know. Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Dale.
Hey there. Thank you. They say they're looking forward to tonight's show. Awesome.
Absolutely.
We are too. Buckle your seats, boys. We don't know how rough it's going to get.
We're going to wing it a little bit and try to be discreet because some of what we're going to talk about can get you, let's call it censored.
Yeah.
On YouTube and Facebook. So, welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, hi, you're very welcome. And we also appreciate our listeners and watchers from the future who may see this in recording in the future as well. We appreciate all of you. Thank you. So tonight, Iris, where are we going that we're so cryptically referring to?
Hey, Rosemary. Yeah. Okay, so what we came up with is sound of freedom getting louder. And what that means is a lot of people have heard of and hopefully seen the movie Sound of Freedom. If you haven't, we're going to talk about that a little bit. But we're going to get louder about it. Jim Caviezel introduced the topic of child trafficking. I can say it because we're talking about the movie. And the topic's kind of been ignored or disbelieved for far too long. People thought that it was just random, nothing really to be concerned with. It happens to other people and it happens in other countries and that kind of stuff. So we're gonna peel the bells and peel back the curtain. I love my wording there. And we're going to talk about some of the other truths. And I pulled the quote, "When God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate." Yeah. That is a direct quote from the movie, from one of the men that was involved in the rescue operation. Yeah. And I guess at this point, just talking about the movie, one of the things that struck me that it was a very intensive movie. And for people who aren't familiar with the topic at all, or who only knew just a little bit, I felt that it dealt with the subject matter lightly enough that it gave people a good introduction. But if you had a little bit more background on the subject, you got a lot more out of it without shocking the newbies in the audience. I thought it was very wisely handled because I knew if they had gone in and tried to do a total reveal, people would have walked out getting sick and saying that's a bunch of trash. They made that shit up. There ain't no way that's going on.
It would be too shocking.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so I thought, great, for the people who don't know much about it, here's your light dosage for you to start opening doors and looking deeper. And then for those of us who were more informed, it just brought tears to our eyes. I mean, it did everybody, I think, but it was like, holy shit, I can't believe they did that easily. Or I can't, you got some extra details that maybe you didn't have that
About how
tied
this
things
actually
together.
works. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so we want to talk about, a little bit of some examples from the film, but also go deeper with it and talk about
Who else is involved?
who else is involved, what else is involved. Just a simple fact, I went to a couple of websites and verified 25 25 to 27% of people that
In
are
human
human
trafficking.
25 to 27% are children
And I think
under,
that that number is low.
yeah.
That number is
Um,
intentionally designed to be sound low. Yeah.
and when you talk about human trafficking, it can involve forced labor. It can involve organs being taken for transplants. It can involve turning children into soldiers, which that was in the news in Africa when that one guy was collecting young boys to be soldiers for his.
Armada.
Yeah. And then and it can involve sex and prostitution. And like I said, sex or prostitution doesn't necessarily go hand in hand. It can be for personal use or private venture, or it can be putting them on the
Or
street.
retail
Yeah.
for purchase. Right.
Did you know that child trafficking wasn't illegal in the US until 2000?
Holy cow. That's a new piece of information right there. Wow.
It did not come into law until 2000 that it was illegal to traffic children.
I'm thinking that's because for eons we've been trained to consider children as property and therefore a commodity, just like adults.
Women were.
Yeah, and women too. Second class citizens. Before that, women were property. Uh, Marriage contracts and so on that were in royalty alliances traded off their daughters and sons for that. Um, yeah, all of those things are forms of enslavement. Everything we're talking about is another form of enslavement. It's not just African people being brought across the pond and forced into labor. There's slavery at all levels, in all cultures, in all races, everywhere. Which brings us back to we all are one. This is not a color game at all. And it's not an age game either. Adults that are childbearing years are mostly women, are susceptible to these human trades as well as children. And the children, it's boys and girls.
Yes, it's not. A lot of people think it's girls, and it's not.
No,
And Tony Rodriguez,
Rodriguez.
he was on our show a couple of months ago, and he talked about his abduction and how he was um, used on Earth in this both as labor, being a child laborer, as well as
A sex
sex
commodity.
pack. Yeah, a sex commodity. And so, and he talked about the others that were there, and I
More,
remember,
more and more people like him are coming out as
yes,
adults that they were trafficked and telling their story. You can find those stories all over the internet. Of course, use your discernment on which ones you feel are genuine. Yeah.
yeah. One of the things that I thought was interesting was, I talked to my sister after she saw the movie, and because when she heard about Tony's story and she read his book, she was talking to me about that, and she said, and she lives in Washington State, and she said he was in an island right off the coast. What in the hell? Really? Do you think people are really doing? I said, have you? And if you're
Cognitive
watching,
dissonance. Yeah.
and she may be watching now, and that's great because I mean I know she'll get what I'm saying. And I told her, do you think that Epstein Island was the only place, the only island like it's there are as
Hundreds, if
many
not
islands on
thousands.
Earth as there are stars in the sky. Practically, people own islands. They do funky things on them. And then she said, one of her one of her shocks was, well, okay, but you have all these workers that, the caterers and the people that transport these people onto the island. Don't they see something? Don't they talk about it?
They do.
And I said, well, yes, but they're either shut up, they're threatened with their lives,
They're
they're paid
paid.
off, that sort of thing. And then after the movie Sound of Freedom came out, I talked to her and I said, because there's a scene there where they got an island and they were going to start this hotel court
Resort.
resort for where they would have these children, and rich people could pay $1,000 and come anytime, $1,000 a year to be a member of this and be able to access this island and the services there and the children. And I said, there you go. There's another one. And it wasn't the first of its kind when they were making it. And they had, not only did they do the movie footage of it, but then at the end they had the actual footage and they compared how they remade it for the movie, which was just almost scene for
Identical.
scene. And so, it was thinking more for her. Then the other night I was on Twitter and was just looking at stuff, and they had an interview, and I actually sent it to her and I said, take a look at this. And it was an interview. It was a silhouette of a man. They weren't revealing his identity. And he had been in service to, he was at like a hotel, and it was a room that Prince Andrew had. And they told him, just that like he was delivering food and, whatever errands he needed and that sort of stuff. There were several people that were in and out of the room. And at one point he was in there and they brought him, Andrew, a small child that was crying. And Andrew he said the way they were acting, he knew something wasn't right. And he talked about what he saw that was very much, he knew what was getting ready to happen. Andrew sent him away, called him back about an hour later, and the kid was almost totally naked. And they said, get the kid dressed. We're going to be moving him. And Andrew was half dressed and was getting dressed himself and all that. And he just talked about the things. And he said, the whole time, I didn't know what to do. And while I was helping this kid get dressed, all I could say was, you're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And he said, and the kid just wanted to stick to me. He was like so scared. And he said, and I didn't, it was like what I got out of it was he was in such
Shock and
shock
disbelief. Yeah.
that he was like, what do I do? How do you
Disempowered.
running down the hall and say Andrew just raped some child in here? Or
who's going to believe you?
Yeah, you're going to pick up the phone. What do you do when you've seen that? And he said, and ever since I've seen that, I have not been the same myself. It was like I was, he was abused in a sense too, because he was like, I was witness to this and I didn't understand what I was seeing. I couldn't comprehend that anybody would actually do those things. And I was like, it was just such a moving piece.
It's outside of their understanding and their belief. Therefore, they're not going to talk about it. It's sort of like talking about UFOs before it got popular to talk about UFOs. That hundreds of thousands of people have had non-Earth encounters or experiences or sightings, and they don't talk about it all these years. Why? Because it's outside of their realm of understanding, and they didn't want to be ostracized for talking about something shocking and unusual. Well,
I went through that as a kid.
Sorry, I can't say that.
We were living in a haunted house, and it was the same thing. You didn't talk about it to anyone back in the 60s.
Right.
You just didn't.
Excellent example.
Because people were going to say you were crazy.
People are going to think I'm crazy. People are going to say I'm crazy. I could lose my job. I could lose my relationships. I could ostracize my children. I'm not going to take those chances. They keep their mouths shut. There's more and more stories coming out along the line of what you're talking about. There's more and more stories coming out. People who are professional chauffeurs for movie stars. And I'm not going to say names, but they actually named movie stars that they drove them to the set and then back to their hotel room. And it's normal, part of it is normal, for the star to require certain things be in the limousine to pick them up and to take them back, such as certain foods or certain equipment or certain drinks or certain entertainment, and specific to their own taste. And what he started seeing was children, underage adults, way underage children were being put into these limousines that he was driving. And of course, the wall would go up, the divider inside the car. It's soundproof. And the kids would go with them to the hotel room and come out the next day looking worse for wear, just to put it nicely.
Amber says people think I'm crazy, but I have to speak the truth. You and me both, Amber. I'm getting to that point too. Well, I have gotten to that point, and there's things are. I'm finding things are a lot less crazy.
Not as insane as we thought.
Don't believe me, they're the ones that have the problem, not me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just telling you what I know and what I've seen and what I've heard and what I've researched. Take it for what it is. If you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. But if you are, we got things to talk about. And that's, and yeah, and I guess that's a good lead in to the story that I have about speaking the truth because of what I saw on Facebook.
Yeah, and this is a bit of inspiration for, we'd like to couch this as, what can you do if about, let's just call it human trafficking, because I mean, we can go down a whole nother route about the majority of human trafficking is actually done to people of color, all right, minorities. And there's a specific reason why Caucasian, European, white people are more excluded. There's a specific reason they're going for people of indigenous ancestry. Let's to include everybody around the world with that scenario. But what can you do about it on a day in day? We can tell you all about it. We can raise your awareness. You guys are healers. You guys are helpers, and so on. You're going to want to know. And Iris has a story of how an opportunity came to her to do something about it because she was aware. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah. So, oh, well, what the hell? I've got a screenshot of the thing that I'm going to talk about. The person's name might be showing. Don't do it. Yeah. Damn it. I'd have to edit it, so I'm not going to do that. Okay. All right. Let me take that off before I accidentally hit the wrong button. All right. So here's what happened. On Facebook, I am, and hello, Heidi. I just saw you come up. Yes. Hi. Glad to see you. So on Facebook, I complained because there was a lot of spam on one of those Facebook pages that's like a marketplace page for local area.
Trading
And I had
items.
complained to the moderator, and I said, "This is ridiculous. We're getting lots of spam. It's." And she, so she said, "Do you want to help?" And I said, "Sure." So I became co-moderator, and I love it because it's very cathartic for me. I get to tell people, "No, you can't be on this page. No, you can't be on this page."
You're messing with the wrong Irish, y'all. Rude people not allowed.
I told you no business posts. Shoot, you're out. I'm loving it. I get home at the end of a rough day and I'm like, don't fuck with me. I'm going to get you. But then somebody posts what they're supposed to, and I'm cheerleading. Well, so I'm approving people and disapproving people depending on, because we have people like in Africa wanting to join the page, and it's like, you don't live in this city. Well, how are you going to sell anything here? Go away, And so that's the kind of thing I'm doing. Well, there's a local woman in a nearby city. I scroll through the post to make sure there's no spam or people breaking the rules, and I scroll through, and this post just jumps out at me. And it's a bunch of teenagers sitting in the sun with bathing suits on, and they're all smiling for the camera, very cute, young teenagers. It's about 4 or 5 of them in the picture. And this woman has posted them on this marketplace page looking for hosts for international students, like student exchange program. I looked at the program that she's with, and they do hire people to find houses for these exchange students.
Hosts.
And for every host house they find, they get paid. So there is motivation to sell, right? Because these people are getting paid based on the number of homes they locate for these students to stay in. And these students are coming from other countries. I looked up at the woman's profile, and I noticed that consistently she has young girls in her pictures, and she and her husband looks like they've made a couple of international trips. But it's a lot of showy, and people commenting, "Oh, those are beautiful girls." And I couldn't tell if it's their daughters, if it's people that they visited them. Some of them are repeated, but a lot of them are not. And it's like, showy events and evening gowns, but they're young
costumes
girls.
and very, very young. They're what, teenagers?
Yes.
13, 14, 15, 16?
Yeah. And I'm like, and I got ready. I mean, I pulled up this woman's profile. I was going to flag it, and I was going to just tell her, I was going to ream her a new one. This is an buy-seller trade, and these children do not fit that. This is what I was getting ready to tell her. And I pulled back, and I went, buy, sell, or trade. And I just got this sick feeling, and that made me even investigate further. So this was like about midnight on a Friday or Saturday night. I picked up the damn phone and called the hotlines, like the national hotlines for
missing and exploited children.
Yes. And they took my information, and I said, maybe it's nothing. Maybe this woman is just plain stupid and doesn't realize the implications that she's making. But to me, I couldn't help but think, what if this is somebody involved in trafficking, and this is a smart way to cover it up?
Yeah.
And I said, but I could be overthinking it, and she just needs a good reaming out,
Wouldn't we
And that's
all?
kind of what the person on the phone did. Kind of, they laughed. Yeah, you're doing the right thing. We'll, somebody will get back with you during the weekday. We're taking, like emergency calls and stuff. But we've got it down, and somebody will call you back. Well, then I didn't hear anything, and I called them back, and there was 2 different agencies I was dealing with. I got switched from one agency to another. One was missing and exploited, and the other one was trafficking, and so I can't remember how I got switched back and forth. I got notes somewhere that I wrote.
One of them was SBI.
Well, so I called them, and they said, yes, we're going to follow up, and you will be hearing from a representative. Next thing, I get a call from the State Bureau of Investigation. And I had a message because, of course, I didn't pick up the phone because I didn't know who it was. So I listened to this message. And, yes, Miss Carter, this is so-and-so from the SBI and North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. And I'm like, holy fuck. So I called him back, got him. And he said, wanted to let you know the status. He said, we have flagged the account. Facebook will not remove the account because she has not violated their rules. We can't prove anything yet, but you did the right thing in calling. We greatly appreciate you alerting us to this. She shouldn't be making any more posts like that. But if you see anything, let us know.
Have you seen anything since?
No.
Okay. Just checking.
And he said, but thank you for letting us know. If you see anything, let us know. And he reaffirmed that you did exactly the right thing. And I said, well, I didn't want to be one of those paranoid, Gladys, Arthur, do you see what they're doing over there?
Arthur. Yeah. From Bewitched, the TV show. Yeah. Yeah, Kravitz, right.
Kravitz, yeah. I didn't want to be one of those, but I said, I just felt like this woman needed to get a knot jerked in her or
wake up.
Because you don't put suggestive photos like
of
that
children.
And say, these children are up for grabs. We need homes for them. Whoa! Don't you want to be a host family and host one of these beautiful young adults? And yeah, lady, I'll take one. I mean,
that was good. Yeah.
I just thought, what the hell? So I got the SBI on her ass. And do I feel bad about it? No, I do not, Amber, because I have to speak the truth.
And
Yep. And so I'm more aware. And then I kept thinking, Iris, you're being a prude. You're being one of those women that, is complaining. But no, not in today's world. Not in today's world.
See, the whole persona of being a Karen, and it's even given a name, is to do that, is to squelch whistleblowers. They send out actors and trolls and people who have been MK'd ultra to act severe in front of a camera about injustices that they perceive, which limits people that are less strong than you, Iris, mentally and emotionally, to feel, well, I don't want to look like a Karen because everybody makes fun of those on Facebook. I don't want to be that. So they keep their mouth shut. That's part of the MK Ultra program. That's maybe a show we ought to do in the future too. What is MK Ultra?
Because on the flip side of that, I would have welcomed the conversation with this woman. But I thought, if I had gone to her and told her, she may or may not have listened because she's trying to make money. If it's a legitimate thing, she's trying to make money. So she's going to do it any way she can. If it's not legitimate, I've lost all chance of stopping her.
You and I went poking around on their private Facebook pages and looked at their photo albums and their personal lives.
Both her and her husband.
They are not innocent, stupid, ignorant people. I'll just put it that way. Mm-mm. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Every single one of the pictures, I'm not going to tell you everything about what we saw, but every single photo of those girls was beautiful and sexy. There were no waking up, with, half asleep or glasses sliding off your nose, trying to do your homework, working out in the field, cleaning food or whatever.
Living with a family. There was nothing like being involved and engaged with family.
No family stuff. Yeah, every single one of them was sexy pictures, lots of bare midriff, shorty shorts, bathing suits, bikinis, flipping
Evening
long
gown.
hair. Yeah, evening gowns, flipping long hair, lots of lipstick, la 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 la. Every single picture. Yeah. It didn't show them doing school stuff, work stuff, family stuff, nothing. Just striking a pose. So, if you want to dip your toes into what's going on internationally, Sound of Freedom is a good movie to start you with. If you want to dig a little further, I'll put it this way, if you are beyond a snowflake, what we're going to tell you next is not for snowflakes. There is a series of videos that tell you the story about human commerce. I'm going to start changing my words here. Human commerce and the people in the GOV, the US GOV, who have been involved for decades. The people that created this video are renowned researchers who have been doing so, and they include their documented, it's mostly headed by one woman, it includes her documentation, cites the sources up in the corner, or actually shows you photos and documents as a part of the screen. They tell you the history of this human, Janet Ossibard tells you the history and the modern involvement about human trafficking, and it's way more explicit, way more pervasive than we're allowed to know about left and right. You guys already know the U.S. news and media and newspapers and so on do not tell us everything. This is a part of the things that they don't tell you for decades now, as in probably hundreds and thousands of years. But modern times, it's still going on. Janet Ossibard, Fall of the Cabal is the name of the series.
And they've got, like, the first series she came out with had like 10 in it. And if you dig around on Rumble, you'll find or
Rumble.com
or DuckDuckGo, look her up or look up Follow the Cabal. You'll find there's actually they put it all in one movie if you want to sit and watch it all at once. I found it kind of good to do it one at a time, because to sit through 3 hours of this stuff, holy cow.
You'll be throwing up after about an hour and you won't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely
And then
not for
she went and
snowflakes.
added
It's
about
also
another
not,
20 to it.
yeah. And
She's
she
gone
goes
deeper.
further back in history, all the way back to Mesopotamian times of where this crap started, which is the thousands of years reference that I just made. Yeah, it goes way, way, way back. This is ancient. This is not modern criminality at all. This is ongoing ancient criminality that's been going on for thousands of years. Again, take it, the Janet Ossibard series. Highly recommend small doses. Watch it in segments. And once you start watching it, you're going to go, oh, yeah, okay, I see why she said that. I see why. Small doses. Get up, walk around, meditate, ground yourself, eat, go interact with normal, peaceful, loving people for a while, and then come back and learn about what else has been going on. Yeah.
I think, in case you haven't seen it, this goes back also to, let me pull it up. I don't know. How many people heard of Pizzagate?
You said
Shoot,
that out loud. I'm really surprised.
I'm sorry, I know, but yeah, all right. It was between
The
calls.
modern version of Watergate.
Yes, with
Flat,
involving
flat
food.
pie Watergate.
And what there are lots of articles out there if you look for it, but this man, there are emails between Tony and our the woman who ran for president.
Okay.
And this is artwork that was owned and liked by him and his brother
In their homes.
Holmes. And one thing, just to share how pervasive this stuff is, it obviously looks like a swimming pool background.
Oh, I can tell you more about the background and where it is, but I'm going to let
Yeah,
you finish,
that's what
please.
it is in
Mm-hmm.
the Biltmore.
That is the Biltmore House here in North Carolina. Yeah. And that family name tells you a little bit more about the type of people involved.
Yes.
This is artwork that Tony loves and shows and shares. There you go. In his house.
This is Tony and Heather in there. Yeah, John's the brother. Yeah, Tony's, they collect it. And
Headless people, headless bodies maimed and hanging from the ceiling with holes in them. Bent over in the exact same pose over and over. Gee, I wonder why. Amber,
and this is
Amber
also
says he is a disgusting pig. I didn't know it was in North Carolina. Yeah, this John and Tony are very disgusting. And Amber, you're going to find out that this stuff is in every single state, every single city, everywhere, all over the planet.
Yes.
No exceptions. I'm sorry to be the wet blanket to say that, but no exceptions. If you're wondering how or what, look up DUMBS, DUMBS, deep underground military bases. They're not all military. That's just a nomenclature, but DUMBS and tunnels. You will find out how almost every single city, maybe not townships and villages, but every city and every major city and every wealthy family in history, not nouveau riche, but some of them. Hollywood, yes. That kind of nouveau riche, yes, they're involved. You're going to find out that it's everywhere. Everywhere. Yeah, underground tunnels. Yeah, well, that's pretty much where a tunnel is, underground.
Yeah. And just to, speaking of Hollywood, I saw an article yesterday, and this was the quickest one I could find. It's not, I think it's translated from another language. Did I put that? Yes, I did. Okay. But
yes,
these were
dug
the
up
pictures that it was talking about. Okay, so yeah, Charlize Theron.
actress.
Actress. And in case you didn't know, I had heard this story before, and I think it's explained further down in this article. When she was a child, her father was an alcoholic and extremely abusive. And he came in with a gun to shoot her and her mother killed him in front of Charlize. So she witnessed that. That's going to screw with you right there. These are the two male children that she adopted, that she is now dressing like girls. And she says it's their choice. Now, that's a very weird coincidence to have two boys that both want to dress like boys. That's her dad. Where in the hell? Who's telling
Children
who?
that, yeah, children that those small ages, they are not having their own social cultural awarenesses. They are reacting to their environment. Do you see what I'm saying? It's social influence at that age. which is where gender identification is rooted. That has to do with other people influencing what they think is appropriate for themselves, little boy, little girl. Totally fine to be a masculine little girl. Totally fine to be an effeminate little boy. You're still a boy. You're still a girl. And getting those two concepts mixed up can be very, very damaging to a child's psyche for the rest of their lives.
And it's not only, it's one thing if the child legitimately, of course, here, this is a whole nother topic for another hour of discussion. It's one thing though, if like I had a neighbor that had a little girl that was my son's age, and that little girl just insisted she was a little boy, and she wanted her hair cut a certain way. She would go around topless in the summertime, shorts, all that stuff, and just I'm a little boy, I'm a little boy. And her parents said, whatever, she'll grow out of it. And she did. And but there are people that feel like, oh, my child is transgendered and we're going to do this, and and that just goes overboard. It's like, nobody wants to say there's tomboys anymore, and nobody wants to say that there's compassionate, caring little boys anymore. They
Sensitive
immediately try to change them. But the other thing is, there are people who will encourage children to do that for the adult's sexual perversion.
That's where this ties into this topic, right?
Yes.
Heidi's mentioned that she has been in the DC tunnels, and she also mentioned that the hormones and food children eat, it's no fucking wonder that they are fucked up as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have less and less of a fighting chance when their own brain chemistry is screwed up from the get-go, and mom and dad's brain chemistry had the exact same problem growing up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, eating the same kind of corrupt food before we were even aware of it. So, yeah, they're fighting a double battle in some cases. So, where were we going with that? Oh, Heidi, you mentioned you were in the DC tunnels. Have you been in the Crystal City? Is that what you're referring to underneath DC? It's called the Crystal City. There was also in Atlanta, there's the Atlantic Underground, or the Atlanta Underground. From what I understand, I talked to my husband about it, who has traveled all over the world, spoke mostly for the military in past decades. He said, yeah, almost every major city also has a secondary city underneath it that has homes and shops and trains and streets and bars and clubs underneath the major city. So this is pretty widespread. But what we're talking about is the unmarked doors or the private clubs that are under there that only certain people get into. That's where you're starting to see more nefarious actions. And Heidi says, yes, in those in the middle of DC and under the government buildings and clubs. Yeah, a lot of the government buildings have direct accesses to these nefarious places that tend to be underground, which I've traveled in little pods and also walk them. Okay, so all right, so she's going to the next level. Girl, I read about the pods. And they've been around. Yeah, they use magnetism and so on. They're egg-shaped. Heidi, I mean, I don't know if this is your experience, but I read a really long article about it, and they've been around since like the 50s or 60s, and they can literally take you from San Francisco to New York back in the 50s and 60s in about 20 minutes. Okay, because they use yes on tracks. Yeah, they're anti-gravity magnetic opposition tracks that they hover so that there's the push, so there's no resistance. And they do other technology inside so that you don't suffer from inertia. The push, the pull of, thing in motion stays in motion, thing at rest stays at rest. Well,
So you get there and it stops and
you stop. When you're going that 20 minutes from coast to coast and you stop in New York City, yeah, you're going to be eating the wall if they don't figure out the physics for how to manage keeping passengers from all slamming and dying up against the front wall. You'll kill your customers every time they try. So yeah, that technology has been around for decades. Heidi, that's really fascinating. She says they hold about 4 of us, egg-shaped clear windows, blue stripes around a white front. We need to interview Heidi.
Yes.
And Heidi, if you don't want to show your face, we understand. We can put up another picture, but we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and I'll show you the article that I'm talking about historically where the pod trains came from and newspapers were reporting on them. San Francisco Times was reporting on it, which is where this article came from. By the way, I got this information from one of the revealers, truthers that we talked about in a past episode, Gene Decode, genedecode.org. Yep, all this information came off of his site. And
It also goes back to the thing where we've talked about movie reveals and things like that. If you saw King Kong versus Godzilla, which I thought I would never like, but it turned out it was a really good movie. And there's this underground train going back and forth, and
from
it's
the
like
Antarctic up to the Asia. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you guys remember The Incredibles? And they were riding around on floating pods in the bad guy's lair that went under the mountain. And the 2 main characters are the mom and the dad. I can't remember, Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible. They were riding around in those pods that were floating on tracks. Yeah.
Damn, Jeannie, say show your face, Heidi. It's a pretty face.
There you go. Yeah. The nefarious clubs, they open at 2 a.m. when all the regular clubs close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the freaks come out at night. Y'all remember that one from the 80s?
So we mentioned, the stars and the weird stuff and the underground stuff. There are things happening right in front of you that you might not be aware of. There is a couple of large international organizations that are not what they appear to be. And we might say, who? Well, you can figure that out.
You and other people might also be involved.
Who?
Indeed.
Yes. And and then it's unbelievable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, the UN believable. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's the soft reveal that happens. Almost all of us at some point in the past have heard reports and stories about Catholic priests abusing little boys, mostly in the 50s and 60s and 70s, I believe is the time frame that they obtusely refer to.
But we know it's still going on, and they're still shuffling them around,
They're
trying
still
to keep
shuffling them around. My dad was a victim of one of those people, of the group of those people in New Jersey back in the 1940s. I'm sorry, he was born in 28, so it was in the 30s. He was a little boy. So yeah, I know somebody that went through that at the hands of Catholic priests. So,
and then there was
reveal, guys. There's more.
Yeah. There is a famous nun that was known in Calcutta for taking care of children and finding them homes and shipping them all over the place. She is now purported to be one of the biggest traffickers. She was a huge clearinghouse.
Because it made her a lot of money.
Yep.
And power. She was the go-to person as well.
So the
Catholic Church backed it up. Yeah.
So it's like, you don't want to think of people being like that, and you want to think that, oh, isn't this person just so wonderful and look what they're doing and all that stuff. But there's yes, Amber.
We don't
um
want to say it and get edited.
yeah.
Yeah.
um but and it's like, first couple times I heard it, I thought, that's, oh, people are just so panicky. And the more you hear and the more you see and the more comments that are made, it's okay. You can say
It's
it. We
okay.
just can't. Amber
We can't.
apologized. Yeah, we'll put your comments up there, but we're just not going to read them.
There's another woman that's famous for her. Yeah, The
Yeah,
Keepers.
Netflix movie called The Keepers about priests and nuns abusing young children. Yes.
Thank you, Donna. Yep. There's reveals about it everywhere. There's a soft reveal that a lot of people don't think about. And I used to be a big fan of this particular person. And she went, I'm not going to say her whole thing, but her first letter was letter J. And she wrote about a story about a series about a magical little boy
Oh, yes.
who lost his parents and found out that he was supernatural. And so were all his friends. And so were all his teachers. And they went to war and so on and so on. And there was all the rage to dress up like these characters and reenact these characters and buy all the books and go see all the movies that were made on the books. And there's sequels based on that are out now. And this the blurb behind the original author, first letter J, was that she was a poor, low income, barely making it waitress who was writing these stories on napkins and was rejected by, 5, 6, 12, the number keeps changing, publishers before somebody finally picked up her book. And now she's a multimillionaire. If you go look it up, she does all children's charities for disadvantaged children, specifically orphans. All right. And which kind of makes sense because they're the ones in the most need. However, has anybody taken a close look at the Olympic Games opening ceremonies that happened in London? Another major, remember, there's a London Underground in a major epicenter. Guys, Vatican, DC, London, keep that in mind. All right. Secondarily, Israel. Israel is not where you think it is, but that's a whole nother story. So back to London. Go look at the footage of the opening games. London, this lady J, that's where she was based. That's where the stories are based. Scotland and London and in the UK. All right, that's where her stories are based. And she herself is a citizen of those countries. And as far as we understand. And the opening sequence of the Olympics that year were held at night, and they had gigantic demonic dementors that are characters in her book coming in and swooping around and grabbing children out of their beds, little actresses who were doing little gymnastics in their little nighties and shorty shorts on flying beds. And there was flashes of light, looked, hellish and red and fire. And the girls were all looking terrified. And the black thing would swoop down and grab them, and on and on and on. And the music was thunderous and it was dark. Guys, yeah, these are a couple things. Nobody was snatched out of their bed or did anything weird in the series of her books. Beds were never a part of that series.
And didn't they put them in cages in that sequence too?
I'm skipping over a whole lot. There's even more because I don't want to talk about forever and ever, what you can go look up yourself. There was nothing about beds. There was nothing about hell and brimstone and fire and explosions. The music was thunderous and dark. It was all about these black, swoopy, demonic things flying around the stadium. Guys, this was supposed to be a celebration opening for the Olympics. And they're showing you dark demons snatching little girls out of flying beds who are terrified to dark, thunderous music.
It doesn't sound very joyous and celebratory to me.
Yeah, put 2 and 2 together, guys. They're showing you something. And my point is, once again, a famous female known for her compassion for children is not what you think she is. Just like the other lady you just talked about. Yeah, and that's extremely disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just so more
I was a
pervasive
big
than
fan.
what we
I was a big
realize.
fan. I used to create artwork based on that series. Now I only do it for friends on the side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Creepy. I mean, just creepy. So, you know,
By the way,
all
children
of
are
this,
supernatural by nature, just so you know. They are. Children are supernatural.
yeah.
Adults are too, but kids are even better at it. Yeah.
Well, and I think, the main thing too is, I mean, this can be so deeply disturbing to read and look up and that sort of thing. But then the more you're aware, once you can get past the
The
shock
emotional,
value of it, yeah, and the emotional,
yeah,
then it's like
practice
you,
separating your emotions from it. Have your emotions, but don't attach them to it. Yeah.
yeah, and then recognize that, it's like, well, what can we do? Well, you can do things like what I did. You notice it, you call it out, call it for what it is. And if
Don't
it's not what it looks like, then the people
you
need to
still did the
change their
right thing
way.
to yeah. Yeah, you did the right thing to protect that child. Yeah.
Oh God, yes, oh yeah, Oprah, Maui.
Multi-billionaire wants to raise money from us to help people in Maui. She's not a multimillionaire, billionaire. 1 or 2 of her billions could reconstitute the whole island. And she would replace that money quickly with her empire in a couple of weeks. But no, that's not what she's doing. She's soliciting us, low-income people, for money.
I commented on,
To
The
fix her
Rock is in
neighbors.
that. Whatever is, I can't think of his name now, but Dwayne Johnson is in the video with her where they're soliciting for people to give donations,
Yes.
and it was on his Twitter account, and so I
Yes. They're doing
commented
it
and
together.
I said, when I see them standing next to each other, I used to think a lot of him, but now all I can think when I look at him standing next to her is how far he has to bend over to kiss her ass, and I can't believe what they're doing.
Do you remember I was talking to you about the guy? I was describing the guy who was a chauffeur and what he witnessed. He was a driver primarily for that actor that you just named.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I did not need to hear that.
Okay, so this is a demonstration. Iris is experiencing exactly what we're talking about, the disenchantment of, oh God, having your beautiful associations crushed with sadness and travesty and bizarre cruelty. So you work through it, guys. Y'all stay the course. It's okay. This is all going to make sense someday, not right now. Your best bet is simply be aware so that when a moment, a time, an opportunity comes that you can make a difference, you have the wherewithal to overcome your cognitive dissonance, overcome your emotional withdrawal, to act and help somebody in that magic moment. Okay? Yeah, now is the time to act. This is not the time to draw back.
And I just want to point out, because Heidi said, she mentioned the girls' school, and, the
There's tunnels under that school like you would not believe.
Oprah, there's she's got lots of photos where she's smiling and gripping and grinning with Harvey Weinstein and Epstein. She made multiple trips to his island, and she opened a girls' school.
She's on that list, the Epstein list.
Yes.
That right there should be giant red flag.
Oh, I can't believe. Yes, I do believe that.
A friend went for an interview, and she said the evil she felt was unbelievable. That actress persona is evil and a witch. We have Iris and I have a mutual friend who met that person in North Carolina at someone else's funeral. And this was maybe 10, 20 years ago. And she had the exact same vibe. And this is back when Oprah was this sunshine queen, Miss United States poster girl. And she said the feeling on her was cold, energy was cold and vicious. Cold and vicious. And it was just creepy. So it's there.
Yeah, Amber's agreeing. Yeah. So guys, hopefully this has been informative. Maybe a little eye-opening. We want to make you aware of some of this shit that's going on, but like I said, we're not trying to bring you down. We're just trying to make you more aware. And the more knowledge that's out there about it, the more it can be ended.
And the less you'll be shell-shocked when you find out.
Just
it's just some of the sweetest actors, producers, performers, inspirational people you've heard of were actually kingpins and queenpins all along.
If you have not, Ronan Farrow wrote a book. Mia Farrow's son, Ronan Farrow, wrote a book about Harvey Weinstein. And if you have not read it, I listened to the book on tape.
Wow.
It just was an eye-opener about how somebody in power can manipulate and say a few things to somebody high up on the ladder and totally squelch the stories that were trying to come out about him. And so if you kind of going, well, come on, how do people get by with this? How do they do this?
They're way smarter than a lot of us, and they've been doing it for decades. So they know, they've been training others. They know exactly what to do.
And so if you want to see that in action, his book is very enlightening on how
that's excellent reference. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's yeah. So anyway, I just want to show you that. Yeah. And the more you know, the more you want to know.
Absolutely. Perspective. If you're just learning about something or someone in particular, and you get that wave of, oh, how can that be true? How could they get away with something so complex? Perspective, guys. You just now learned about it. It's brand new to your awareness. You are not a nefarious person. You're a nice guy. So how an evil person and a whole evil organization has been working for decades nonstop is going to go over your head initially. Okay? Your perception of reality is not necessarily the one that has existed for other people with a totally satanic view of how life should be and the value system they're in. Just because you can't figure out how to do it, people who are highly qualified figured out how to do it decades ago. Yeah. Pre-World War I. The royal families, they're aces at it. That's another hole to go down.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for hanging with us tonight. Oh, and real quick, next week, let me put this up. We're going to talk about animal magnetism. What animals do for us what we do for them, and our connections and that sort of thing, and how we affect them. So we're gonna kind of it's not as scary as tonight. A little bit fun, a little bit a little different, but
A lot lighter.
yeah. So I want to put that out to you. Do you know who Fauci's mother is? Yes, I think
I
I've
don't.
heard stories, but I can't remember. There's been
Type it
some
in
different.
there, Amber. Let us know.
Yeah. But
You're
in the
welcome,
meantime,
Dale and Jean. Yeah,
yeah, they said
Jeannie.
thank you for sharing and opening eyes. Appreciate it.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
y'all being with us, and greatly appreciate you joining us every week. We'll be back next week.
Namaste.
Thank you for joining the Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod. Find us at facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo, on YouTube under @Iris Carter Enterprises, and on various podcast aggregators. Copyright 2023 by Iris Carter